the CDC itself said the average person who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. Why?
Yes.
Where's all the obesity coming from?
Right.
You've been to Iowa recently.
Yeah.
You know, look at around at Americans. Look at how we look. This week there was a study that came out that showed that since 1989, which is the key year, the kids born after 1989 have 4 times the rate of rectal cancer, 2 times the rate of colon cancer. So that isn't even chronic disease. Something happened in 1989. What is it? Okay. The Congress said to, we went from when I was a kid, I'm 69. How old are you?
I'm 58.
Okay, so I'm 69. My generation, 1 in 10,000 people has autism today. Full-blown autism, 1 in 10,000. And in fact, I'm going to tell you this, I have never seen anybody my age with full-blown autism. I've said there's a lot of people with Asperger's and, but nobody, 69-year-old man with head banging, wearing a helmet, a non-toilet train, non-verbal, stimming, toe walking, hand flapping. I've never seen it. And I've been around people with intellectual disabilities, the heart of it, my whole life. I grew up with Special Olympics. My aunt started it. I've been working in it as a hugger, as a coach when I was 8 years old. I spent 200 hours in Wassaic Home for the Retarded when I was in high school because it was part of our DNA in my family that this is what you did. And so where did this come from? We went from 1 in 10,000. Today, my kid's age, the CDC's latest number, 1 in 34. And some states are reporting 1 in every 22 boys. So what happened? And so Congress said and it is an epidemic. What the industry tries to tell you is, it's, we're just seeing more. We're better diagnostic criteria, change diagnostic criteria, better recognition.
Yeah.
That is just propaganda. In fact, and if that were true, you'd see people my age with 1 in 34 because we recognize it in 69-year-olds too, and you won't find them. But also the state of California, the legislature told the Mind Institute at UC Davis, the premier, research institute in the country, tell us whether the autism epidemic is real. Because the industry was saying, oh no, we're just noticing it more. And missing autism is like missing a train wreck. So it didn't happen. But the Mind Institute, Dr. Irreverent Spachota, one of the premier scientists in the country, came back and said, no, the epidemic is real. It's real. It's real. So Congress then said to EPA, tell us what year it began. And EPA is a captured agency. It's captured by the oil industry, the coal industry, and the pesticide industry, but it's not captured by pharma because it doesn't regulate pharma. Right. So it came back with a real study.
Really?
And it said 1989, it's a red line. 1989, we went, now, that was the year, the change year. So you have to look and say, what happened in 1989? What changed in 1989? Something ubiquitous, something that affected every demographic in this country, from Cubans in Key Biscayne, Miami, to Inuit in Homer, Alaska. What happened? And there's a number of things that follow that timeline. And there's a famous toxicologist called Phil Landrigan. And he looked at it. He's done a couple of papers saying, what could it be? Because a lot of other stuff happened that year. Food allergies suddenly appeared. Peanut allergies, right? Well, I never saw one when I was a kid. You never saw one, right?
No.
Now there's EpiPens in every classroom.
Yes.
All other allergic diseases exploded. Eczema suddenly appeared. I was sitting at a meeting the other day, and there were 2, 25-year-old kids running the meeting. They're both covered with eczema. I never heard of eczema. I never knew anybody who had eczema. These are allergic diseases, anaphylaxis, asthma. My brother had asthma, and he was told by a doctor, he said it'll never be a cure for asthma because it's so rare and nobody will ever study it. So now 1 out of every 4 black kids in our cities has asthma. And it's an epidemic. Everybody's got albuterol inhalers. And by the way, the EpiPens, are $600.
Yes.
So, pharma's making out like bandits of this. Okay, then you had all these autoimmune diseases suddenly appear at the same timeline. Juvenile diabetes. I didn't know anybody with diabetes when I was a kid. Rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Crohn's disease. All of these diseases that are autoimmune suddenly appeared in that 1989 time period. And then all these neurodevelopmental diseases, ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics, Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, all of these diseases I never heard of when I was a kid. There's a study that came out this week from CDC that said that between 1 in 6 and 1 in 10 kids now has a neurodevelopmental disorder. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a whole generation of children that have been disabled. We have the sickest kids in the world, in the United States of America, sickest generation ever, and we're the sickest population in the world. So we know that something happened in 1989. It's not genes, because genes don't cause epidemics. They may provide a vulnerability, but you need an environmental toxin. It's the only thing. Everybody knows that. Bill Landrigan went and he looked and he said, okay, what are the potential culprits that could have caused this? Okay, I think one of those is high fructose corn syrup. Okay, so that is a potential culprit. And there are plenty of studies that link that to the obesity epidemic and the diabetes epidemic. That stuff is poison. And it's in everything now. If you're gonna drink a Coca-Cola, drink a Mexican Coca-Cola because it has sugar in it.
Right.
And don't drink the corn syrup.
Right.
But it's in everything. And okay, PFOAs and PFASs, which are flame retardants that appeared around the same time, and they're in all your furniture, and they're in the children's pajamas and everything else, and that. I sued DuPont on that, and they made a movie of that lawsuit called Dark Waters with Mark Ruffalo. Roundup, okay, glyphosate, which appeared on that same timeline, and I sued them to. I was on the team that won the 3 big Monsanto suits, which now I think $13 billion. Cell phones, Wi-Fi radiation, which, it has all kind of bad effects. Very well documented in tens of thousands, and that's not hyperbole, tens of thousands of studies. And then on Phil Landrigan's list is also ultrasound. I don't think there's anything wrong with ultrasound, but who knows? I have never read any of the studies or anything else. I don't know, but I think he included it because you have to look at all of the possible exposures that became ubiquitous along that timeline. And then one of the exposures, of course, is vaccines, because we went from the 3 vaccines that I took as a kid to the 72 vaccines that my kids' generation had to take in order to graduate from high school. In many states, they were recommended, but it means mandated in New York and California and many other states. And interestingly, all of those diseases that I listed, the neurodevelopmental, the autoimmune, the allergic disease, are all listed as side effects on the manufacturer's inserts of those 72 vaccines, of some of those 72 vaccines. So those have to also be considered a culprit. But there's a limited, finite number of things that could be making this happen. And why is not NIH, with its $42 billion annual budget, doing those studies and telling us it's an easy study to do? We have the databases. It's very simple to do it, and they spread out that money and develop drugs for the pharmaceutical industry to treat these, but nobody's asking where's it coming from. And and that's what we ought to be. And when I get in there, I'm going to walk over to NIH the first week and say, this is what you're doing from now on. You're going to tell us what's causing this, and then we're going to get rid of it.
So I just have to correct you on the ivermectin hydroxychloroquine. I know you think it treats COVID, but no matter what you see, no matter how many studies you read, it is incorrect. It does not treat COVID, and that's what the science says. Tony Science says that,
and there's
so
400 studies that disagree with them, but there are literally 400 studies now on hydroxychloroquine and 99 studies on ivermectin. If you're interested in those studies, I think we list them out on the CHD website, but Merrill Nass also lists them, and Harvey Risch lists them. So you can go and look at their website. You can read those studies, or you can just trust the experts.
The NIH. So I always ask people when they say, you got to trust an expert. And I'm like, well, what do you do when you see two experts and they disagree, which happens all the time? Now you have to make a decision. You have to start reading. You have to get informed to make an informed decision. And people just threw that out there during COVID. They just
I've brought probably more than 500 lawsuits. Almost all of them involve, most of them environmental stuff. Almost all of them involve scientific controversies. And there's always experts on both sides. And they're saying diametrically opposed things. When we brought the Monsanto case, Monsanto brought in experts from Stanford, Harvard, and Yale. We had experts from Stanford, Harvard, and Yale. And they were looking at the same data,
saying
two different things. And the juries in all three cases believed our experts. You can always find an expert. They're called biostatutes who will take the industry side. And those are the people they were asking us to believe during COVID.
Yeah. Yes. So vaccines are safe and effective, though. There's no way. And I just have to let everyone know that vaccines are safe and effective. They don't cause any of that problems that you were saying. But I appreciate you bringing it up for argument. It was nice so I could correct you. Come see our live shows. We're going to be in Chicago, Rosemont, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, New York City, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, Stamford, Toronto, Toledo, Detroit, St. Louis, and more. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.